All right, are we ready? Going to start admitting now. Then we'll start at 12:30.
All right, shall we go ahead and get started?
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, welcome everyone for joining our collaborative webinar today, goDCgo and WMATA, the Washington Area Metropolitan Transit Authority. Thank you for joining us. I know that there will be folks continuing to trickle in, but we will go ahead and get started. And I would like to let everyone know that this meeting is recorded, or I should call it a webinar, not a meeting. But we will be recording this session so that folks will be able to rewatch it later. And for anyone who is joining just now, feel free to save your questions for the chat or at the end. Today, we will be talking about navigating the Better Bus Network. As many of you have heard, WMATA is working on some big redesigns, and so goDCgo is here to tell you all about the changes that are upcoming. And of course, WMATA will be presenting, and they will be able to answer a few common questions, and then goDCgo will share a little bit about our services and how we can help through this transition. That sounds good. I'll start introducing our webinar members today. So we do have Priscilla Renjikar, who is our school's outreach coordinator from goDCgo. And then we have Leslie Henderson, our residential outreach coordinator, and myself, Jessica Lynn, the employer outreach coordinator for goDCgo. And we are also joined by Melissa Kim, the program manager for strategic planning at WMATA, and William Jones, program manager for strategic planning at WMATA. Thank you all for joining us today. And without further ado, we'll start with our agenda. So we'll talk about what is goDCgo. I'm sure many of you are familiar with us, but if you're not, and this is the first time you're meeting us, I'd love to share a little bit about who goDCgo is and what we do, our mission, and the ways that we can help you. And then we'll have WMATA share about the Better Bus Network redesigns. And then we'll close out with goDCgo sharing the employer services, residential services, and school services. As promised, we're going to save a little bit of time at the end for questions. So either share them in the chat or we will get to them at the very end. So thank you in advance for your patience. So we'll start with who is goDCgo. Let's go. So goDCgo is an initiative of the District Department of Transportation, or DDOT. We are the leading resource for transportation information and options. And of course, we encourage the use of sustainable transportation. That includes biking, walking, scooting, carpool, vanpool, and definitely riding transit, either bus or rail. So that's what we do. And our goal is to reduce the number of trips that you have in a car. So we offer complimentary transit resources. We do programming, marketing, and outreach for all sorts of DC organizations and individual commuters like some of yourselves. And overall, our goal is to reduce traffic congestion, improve air quality, and create better quality of life for all in the DC area. So without further ado, I'll hand it over to Melissa and William to talk about the upcoming changes for the Better Bus Network.
Thank you so much, Jessica, and thank you, goDCgo in general, for having us today. I'm gonna kind of start off with a little background, hand it over to my colleague William, and then I'll finish off the presentation. So I'm Melissa Kim. I work in Metro's Office of Planning, and I, along with William, am one of the deputy project managers for our Better Bus Network redesign project. I'll let William introduce himself once he joins, and then we're actually also joined by another colleague, Charlie Dingboom, who can help us answer questions at the end. He's in our Office of Bus Planning. All right, so next slide, please. We always want to start off by talking about why we're doing this at all. So doing a network redesign is really a generational opportunity for us. We, as Metro, haven't looked holistically at the network since it was developed over 50 years ago. So we're really taking a look at how we can better serve people, how we can better connect people, given how much people's travel patterns have changed over not just since the pandemic, but the past 50 years. The time of day that people want to travel has changed, and our region has really grown. So this is a chance for us to take a look at all of that and design a network that works better for people. Next slide, please. We're currently wrapping up our third round of outreach for the project. We started the project off in the summer of 2022, and in our first round of outreach in the fall of 2022, we talked to almost 10,000 different customers and residents to hear about their priorities for bus service and gaps they were feeling and opportunities. And that helped us develop the visionary bus network that we took out to the public last year. And that was the network that we think the region and customers really deserve. It provides all the connections that people are making and a lot of really good frequent service. And in the second round of engagement, we talked to over 20,000 customers and residents, got over 8,000 comments on the visionary network, and used that to revise the network to get to where we are now. So the focus of this current round of outreach, which closes this coming Monday on July 15th, is the proposed 2025 network within our existing resources. So we have our revised visionary network, everything we want for bus service, and we worked to bring that down to what we can implement within our existing resources. And ultimately, we're going to take the input that we hear, and we're going to make adjustments based on the input that we got from you, from our operators, from customers across the region, and then take that final network back to the board. Next slide, and I'm going to turn it back over to William to take over.
Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. Can you all hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so my name is William Jones, and as Melissa mentioned, I am one of the deputy project managers on this project effort on the team, and I'll be going through a good bit of the presentation. So as Melissa mentioned, last year we did a lot of work, and the key thing we were asked, the questions we were trying to answer were, in the very beginning of the project, the public wanted fast, frequent, and reliable bus service. Did the recommendations that we put out make sense? And so we sought to do that. And we got a lot of feedback on that. But then the hard part came where we had to sort out and sort through how can we take the first step in implementing that, since what we had last spring and all the feedback we received, we couldn't just implement that as is. So these are some of the things that we sought to do in terms of trying to carry the feedback that we heard from last spring, carry it forward and take those steps within existing resources, so we sought to try to provide more frequent service during the midday, during the evening, during the weekend, to cover a resident's travel that's not necessarily a 9 a.m. to 5 job, going to a government entity or a municipal government entity, but to cover all those other needs that are out there in terms of being able to get around, and to try to provide more connections to other destinations such as job centers and hospitals, other places where residents need to go, try to make it as direct as possible where we could, saving residents time and improving operations. A part of this exercise did involve talking with bus operators and getting their feedback on how they saw the routes happening and what they heard from the public. We sought to try to use and take advantage of the opportunities of the existing bus lanes that are being implemented within the district and soon to coming work that DDOT's doing in terms of looking at other bus lane projects within the district. And we also sought to make the network more understandable by going through a route renaming exercise. With all of this, we're hoping that we can attract 13,000 additional weekday trips and avoid over 4,000 metric tons of greenhouse gas emissions a year by having persons transfer from their car to use transit, and that's throughout the region. Next slide, please. So we're hoping that the feedback that we get will help us to take that first step in developing and implementing the bus network the region needs and deserves. As we go through the legislative exercises that the authority is taking on, COG is taking on, other municipalities are taking on to receive and obtain additional funding for transit, we can then look at how we can implement the visionary network that will help us to better improve access, frequency, and convenience for many residents throughout the district and throughout the region. Some of the things that we talked to the residents about that saw us or heard us at the many events we had going on, we wanted to provide bus service that came 30 minutes or less throughout the day. And then we also there are also 30 additional routes that are not on the board, if you will, in terms of being implemented. So we have 30 additional routes that would be sought to be implemented. We also sought to create a region-wide 24-hour bus network. So not just the services that run 24 hours through the district, but also the services that run across the region. And then including having that overnight connections to the airports in the region, Dulles and Reagan National, and just being able to provide a more consistent frequency each day through the week. And these are some of the benefits on the right side of the screen that we hope to achieve. So this is a first. So what you see here is what we hope to get to. What we're talking about today and what we're seeking to get feedback on would be the first step in order to get to that visionary network, the ultimate desire bus network for the region. Next slide, please. So we have been getting this question about how did we make determinations on these recommendations. And so there's a variety of things that we've done. Here is a lot of the data that we used. And so during the times we worked on this, we did snapshots in time looking at the ridership that was on Metrobus, on Metro Rail. We've looked at the annual performance reports, and we'll probably be looking back at those again with the close of this past fiscal year and the data that's there. Also in partnering with Prince George's County, the bus, their data was also included so we can work on a comprehensive network of recommendations within Prince George's County. We took all the comments from the last two phases going back to when the project started in 2022 in terms of the priorities, in terms of the visionary network. If you came to one of the events that we had last spring, the big ones that we had in Southeast DC and in Northeast DC, we had this exercise of trade-off questions as well. So some of that feedback that residents gave us, we used that as well. And also regional information in terms of population and jobs. And then just information from the census to help us in some of these decisions. What we would say also to that is we also did some things in terms of the operator feedback, understanding which streets could be used or how over time the streets have become crowded with parking on both sides, for example, are places where there have been places for 50 years that we've done some things that are actually not safe, such as going into an apartment complex, getting to the dead end and backing the bus up in a 3-point turn to actually turn around and go out. That's not necessarily ideal, but that's something that has been done over time. And so there's some things in 2024 that we're trying to adjust. So some of it is database, but some of it is also operational safety observations that we're also seeking to address. So on the right side, all of those ingredients on the left have been put together to help develop this proposed network. One thing to note is that we did look at places within the district, especially on the routes that were going to be more direct and more frequent, whether it's 12 minutes or less or 20 minutes or less throughout the day. Looked at where we could speed up the bus service by looking at where we could propose recommendations to consolidate bus stops, or in this case, eliminating some of those stop locations, but also taking into account that places where schools are, places where our seniors are, making sure that we don't pose conflicts with those areas, but trying to find ways to speed up the bus service and to improve service. Next slide, please. So I mentioned that last spring we were asking those who came out to the event some trade-off questions. And the biggest one that I always remember asking was, if you walked out of your apartment and you went down to the corner and there's a bus stop there and that bus comes twice an hour, and then there's a bus route 3 blocks up the street, that bus comes 3 times an hour. If we were to combine those resources and have the bus that comes twice an hour be merged with the bus route 3 blocks up the street to provide trips 5 times an hour, would you be willing to walk those few extra blocks to get a bus route that came more frequent? That's some of the trade-off questions we asked, and it was a mixed bag among the residents throughout the region. And we also are getting feedback on that as well. But that was some of the trade-offs that we had to consider in trying to provide this better bus network. So in some instances, some of those trade-offs, if there were areas that we had consistent service levels throughout the day and week, we wanted to do that. And there's some places where we're able to try to carry that forward. We want to provide better service in equity-focused communities, making sure that persons who are that are in needing of going to jobs, needing to go to medical appointments, needing to get to the grocery store, things of that nature, that we were able to provide better opportunities for them to do that, and to be able to do it as quickly as possible. Traffic in the district notwithstanding, of course, and then being able to try to do that faster and direct. But that did result in some trade-offs where there are some areas that are receiving less frequent service during the weekday rush hours, and there are areas that had low ridership, meaning the ridership didn't come back as it was, or 50%, 60% less of stop activity at a bus stop within a particular route. Those areas, we ended up having to make a recommendation to reduce service in those areas with low ridership. And then, as I mentioned earlier in this slide, some residents may have to travel a little bit further to get to a bus stop. Again, using that analogy or that example of going from a stop on the corner to a stop on a major street that may be 3 blocks up the way from where they are. Next slide, please. So here are some examples of the new connections that are being proposed within the district. And they span across the region. This was taking into account all of the feedback and the data that we heard, and also try to accommodate some of the concerns that were raised during last spring. So I won't go through all of them in detail, but what I'll try to do is summarize them. So for example, extending connections across municipal boundaries was one of the things that we talked about last year. So in Northwest DC, having the recommendation D96 that runs to Bethesda to Potomac Park, that actually is running through the Glover Park neighborhood and heading into DuPont Circle. And so it's kind of a straightening out of the D2, or extending the D2, if you will, north and south. Also, on Northwest, being able to have a connection that a couple of crosstown connections, but a new crosstown connection between Sibley Hospital and Fort Totten. Now, it's probably an existing connection today, but there were some modifications in between uh, getting across that we were trying to achieve there. Um, Shifting over to the Northeast, the D34, having that connection between West Hydesville and Metro Center. It's sort of an existing connection today, but it only runs through Eastern Avenue. Being able to extend that service out to West Hydesville to provide connections into the Green Line, into other opportunities, is one thing that the team looked at and sought to provide in terms of new connections. One main one is being able to provide connections to Fort Lincoln, and the shopping opportunities are there. So there are a few routes that will be put in place to do that. One is the D32, running from Gallery Place, Chinatown up to Fort Lincoln. And then we also have the P42, which would run through Fort Lincoln, but it's connecting Fort Lincoln to two areas along the eastern border of the district from Tacoma, and then out through Prince George's County towards East Riverdale and New Carrollton Station. So that's something that the team thought would be helpful connections for residents. Then also moving on, sought to connect a couple of neighborhoods within Ward 7 and Ward 8 into the core of DC, and not have this artificial boundary at Anacostia. So the C22, that line there in orange, connecting several neighborhoods into Potomac Avenue Station. I'll mention the C41 because the C41 is the B2, and the B2 is basically being also extended into West Hydesville as well to create that additional connection and travel into opportunities. And then the C11 running from L'Enfant Plaza down to National Harbor and Eastover Shopping Center, an opportunity to give a direct route for those who are seeking to access jobs and opportunities, whether they're going into downtown DC by way of L'Enfant Plaza or heading to National Harbor, and as well as being able to get to the Eastover Shopping Center that has a grocery store and other places where you can get goods and services from. So those are some of those connections there. I will tell you that everything that you see on the map, we have received a considerable amount of feedback on. Some have found it favorable, some have asked for us to reconsider some of those things. So we're already looking into that. In particular, the D96 is one that's come up a lot. The D74, I didn't mention Farragut Square to Rhode Island. That one has come up a bit as we looked at services from U Street and Adams Morgan down towards Potomac Park. So that's some of the feedback that we received from some of the ANCs. And then also about the B2, the C41, because we've made some modifications within the core DC that residents have shared insights with us on. So next slide, please. So I'll share this as I just mentioned. I probably did a little bit too much in the earlier slide, but this is one of those better connecting the region to jobs, destinations, and other transit modes. So we spoke about Fort Lincoln as being a place that we wanted to provide more connections to, and so you see that from Washington Hospital Center, we have a route that's heading over to Deanwood, connecting through Fort Lincoln. So being able to connect those two areas, we felt as a team was important. I mentioned the service from Chinatown out to Fort Lincoln, and then I also mentioned the service that connects Tacoma and parts of Prince George's County, Colmore Manor, into Fort Lincoln. So that's one of those places where we felt this would be a great opportunity to provide additional connections. And the information that is on the left side of the screen is what we sought to do with this network as a region, being able to provide more access to opportunity, more access to jobs, but also trying to do that in a shorter time frame by bus, as opposed to some journeys that take up to 90 minutes to get to a destination by bus. how can we do that quicker? Understanding we don't control the roads, we don't control the traffic signals, and so buses are still going to be sitting in traffic. The private developers putting up construction, blocking off streets. We still have those things to challenge. So within the control of the team and the control that we have in terms of bus service, how could we give more opportunity for residents to get to places by bus quicker? That's part of what we sought to try to do with this. Next slide, please. So in seeking to make bus service more convenient, we made recommendations that sought to provide direct, easier to understand service and more frequently. So in some instances, what we were trying to do was routes that may go deep into neighborhoods. If it was too far into the neighborhood where we couldn't restructure it to bring it to the major arterial or major road, those routes stayed within the neighborhood. But if there were opportunities where we could shift the route to a major road to make it more direct and then make it more frequent, that's something that we sought to do to try to save time for residents who are going to be using those services. On the right side of the screen, you have the example of the existing W2, which is a loop through Ward 8. Windy, it's indirect. If a person was in the Mellon Street, Oakwood Street loop, they would need to take the W2 to the A-line services on Martin Luther King in order to be able to go anywhere south. If someone was boarding the bus at Southern Avenue Station, they would have to sit on the bus for 23 minutes just to go down to Southern Avenue or 23rd Parkway, which is less than a half mile away. Those sorts of things that we saw, we wanted to try to help to make things a little bit more direct. So at the bottom there are 3 proposed recommendations that split up portions of the W2 and other routes within Ward 8 to try to save time and provide more connections for residents throughout the area. So that's some of the things that we sought to do. Next slide, please. Now, the route renaming is, from what I've been hearing from the public, is a little bit of a tricky subject, primarily because we had some previous studies that recommended strategies and solutions to make buses easier to understand and more intuitive. And so the existing route naming may be, one moment, please. Let me know if I'm too loud now. Okay. And for the person who put that in the chat, I hope you can hear me now. So as I mentioned, there has been discussion about how can we make the information on the bus head sign clear for residents to use. Now, I will go on record and say that I believe that depending on who the resident is within the district, I think they will clearly say, I know what the X2 is. I know what the 54 is. I know what the A4 is. I know that. I'm good with it. I know what I'm looking for. No issues here. But the route number and naming conventions have been in place since before Metrobus began, which was in 1973. And so to that end, we have been tasked with looking at a way to make it intuitive and easier to understand. And there were several different focus group discussions that happened last year. There were several different exercises that took place to start to get feedback. But we acknowledge the fact that this change, if it were to go through, would be extremely difficult. But this is seen as a tremendous opportunity to make the bus network more intuitive. 2 things to note here: there are some route changes and some proposals here that change the existing route so significantly that it would require a new change, meaning that the existing route that's out there today, maybe only 15% of that route would be the same and the rest of it would be would be dramatically different. In the hope that with this, the new route names also reinforce that other aspects of the route may be changing too, such as its destination. There are some services that are going into Southern Avenue Station today that may be going into Suitland Station as proposed in this plan, not going to Southern Avenue anymore. So to that end, there was a need to look at making some of these changes. And so for routes within the district, as the illustration shows on the right side of the screen, we tried to make it as intuitive as possible. If a recommendation is traveling to downtown DC, whether it's going to L'Enfant Plaza, going to Archives, or going to Gallery Place Chinatown, it would have a D represented as the first um, letter in this letter number combination. If the route is going crosstown, say if it's going across Military Road and Kennedy Street, for example, it would have a C for crosstown. And then the others are listed there. If the route majority is in Montgomery, it'll have an M. Prince George's County, it would have a P. If over in Virginia, Arlington, and Alexandria, it would have an A and an F for Falls Church, City of Fairfax, and in Fairfax County. The second character is a number for a route's corridor or neighborhood. And then the third character is a number to distinguish it from others, or an X for limited stop. If you think about the 79 and the X9, those being our Metro Extra routes, those will have an X as the third character. And we also want to do this so that if you took Metrobus and then you got on the bus, there would be some similarity with that approach, understanding that Prince George's County, the bus is all going to have a P. So just trying to create some intuitive synergy between the municipal service providers is what we sought to achieve there. And then the last slide that I have for the moment, I talked about it earlier, so I won't go into depth detail, but the next slide in terms of looking at the bus stops, what we sought to do was look at how could we speed up the bus service, and we looked at routes that were the more direct routes, those that were.
Leslie, can you go to the next slide, please?
Sorry about that, thank you. And so the other thing that was a part of this effort was this bus stop consolidation effort that I mentioned early on. We did not look at every route. We looked at the routes that made up the existing frequent service network, those routes that operate 12 minutes or better or 20 minutes or better throughout the day. And there were about 600 bus stops that are being recommended for elimination. This is a discussion that we're going to be having with the transit planning, our transit planning cohorts at DDOT over the next several weeks to make sure that we didn't miss anything. When I mean miss anything, what I mean is if we're proposing a stop that's a limit to be eliminated and it's on a route where there's a senior living facility nearby, that's something we want to reconsider. We don't want to necessarily do that. We want to say, okay, well, wait a minute. Then we don't want to do that. Let's see if there's another location we can look for or come up with other strategies to speed up the service. So these are some of the things that we looked at if the stop was too close. So basically, if you had a stop on one corner, you got to the end of the next corner and there was a stop there, those are sort of the situations that we were trying to reduce there, if you will. If the route had low ridership, meaning if on a daily average we had 2 to 5 people or no one at all using that bus stop, that was also considered. And we also considered a situation if there wasn't a safe pedestrian access, meaning you got off the bus and you had to walk across 3 lanes of traffic with no crosswalk, no traffic light, or as soon as you stepped off the bus and went around the corner to go down that street, you're pretty much in the street walking from the bus stop. Not a lot of cases like that in the district, but I know across the region there were examples of that, so that we looked at this. So on to the next slide.
All right, I'm gonna go pretty quickly because I know there's a little bit, goDCgo has a bit they want to share and we want to make sure there's time for questions. So if you can go to the next slide. really quickly, just wanted to highlight that we're, as I mentioned earlier, at the end of our engagement period, but we kicked off in May 13th. And since then, we've had a number of in-person events, really trying to go to where people are. So some of those pop-ups were at metro stations with a lot of bus activity. And we focused on going to areas where there's a high change proposed. We also did a number of ride-alongs where we actually went on routes that are proposed to change to talk to people on the bus, get their input. So we've really tried to go to where people are as part of this. We've also in DC been working with council members to host events in each ward. Those ended up being both virtual and in person to hear from folks across the city and the region. And then we've also had the chance to do a number of webinars like this one that are hosted by our partners to really take advantage of the reach they have and the folks that they work with and engage. And so across the past, I guess, 2 months of engagement, we've received over 7,700 comments on routes. We've had conversations with about 1,500 people at our in-person events, and over 30% of those interactions were actually in Spanish. So we're excited that we talked to a lot of people. We do want to hear from more. We want to hear from all of you, which is part of why we're here. So if you can go to the next slide. There's a number of materials available online to help people understand the proposals. So there's our kind of large scale state maps that are similar to our maps that we have for our existing service. There are route profiles that tell you at a route level what is proposed to change. And then we also have neighborhood profiles available. There's also a tool on our website where you can type in your origin and your destination and see what your trip is now, and then how it would change using the proposed network. And then once you've had a chance, I know William has kind of talked through some of the proposals, but there's a lot of routes in this network that are hard to kind of wrap your head around. So these materials are intended to help people understand what's changing in a way that's most relevant to them. And then next slide. As I mentioned before, our outreach is closing on Monday, July 5th at 5 p.m. So you can provide us comments all the way up till then. We have an interactive map that you can go to and actually just leave comments directly on that map that the team will use and review when we're revising the network. And there's also on our website a survey. You can provide written comments, and there's a place where you can upload a document to our website. So I'll be sure to share that website in the chat. And then next slide. So in terms of next steps, we're going to take the feedback that we received through Monday at 5 p.m. From you, from other groups, and we're going to use that to refine the 2025 Better Bus Network. And we plan to share that with our board in the fall of this year for adoption. And then I think we have one more slide. This is kind of what we've been sharing throughout the project, but we do have information that you can share with others. So I know someone in the chat mentioned wanting to share some information with parents and or families in the schools, so we can send along that materials to make sure that goDCgo can distribute it. We also would love for you to provide feedback on the network yourself using either of the ways that I mentioned. And we do want to hear from as many people as possible. So we'd love to hear from you all the way up until this kind of 5 p.m. deadline on Monday the 15th. And I think that's it for us. So we'll turn it back over to you all for your slides, and then we're excited to answer some questions afterwards.
All right, thanks so much again, WMATA, both William and Melissa. Thank you so much for providing that information. Again, if you would like to provide feedback, the link was, I think it was wmata.com/betterbus. So feel free to visit. Now we're going to go into a little bit about how goDCgo can help. So goDCgo has, on this call, we're going to talk about 3 different programs. We have the employer program, the residential program, as well as the schools program. So if you're involved or connected to any one of these, you will probably receive an email to hear more about goDCgo's services, what we have upcoming. And of course, if you registered for this webinar, you will receive a recording. So you can get the recap for these slides, and as well as what was discussed today. I saw that in the chat. Yes, the recording will go out afterwards. So goDCgo Employer Services Our award-winning employer services team provides complimentary consultations for businesses starting or enhancing their commuter benefits program. Can everyone hear me okay? We're good? Okay, I'll try to dust off my mic a little, speak up. From transit benefits to secure bike parking, telework, all sorts of modes, including carpool. We try to help employees and employers learn how to make sustainable, affordable, and green commuting possible, including commuter benefits, different programs that you offer your employees, incentivizing them to get to work. As a free service, again, everything that goDCgo does for you all is complimentary. We work with you to customize, create, and easily administer employee transportation benefits, and our team is here to help both you as an employer and your employees be able to access all the transit options that are available to you in DC. And there's some stats below, but we can move on to the next slide. So thank you all. Okay, the volume is good for enough. Great. So as one of the services we offer, we do custom commute surveys. And if you are an employer, you'll know that this is really beneficial because it is a way for you to gain insight into how your staff is commuting. This is information you wouldn't really otherwise know about what your employee preferences are. Do they want bike benefits? Are they using their transit subsidies? How are they getting to work on Mondays versus Tuesdays? Is it telework? Is it carpool? Are they driving alone because they simply don't know the benefits that are being offered? What would be of interest to them? These are the kinds of questions that commuter surveys can answer, like what are their needs and issues? Are the benefits actually working? Do they know about it? So that is a great tool for employers, and we do customize these surveys depending on what your needs are. For example, if you have shift workers, or if your workforce is usually 9 to 5, if you have people coming from Virginia and Maryland versus mostly within DC. So this is another great service. And then in the next slide, I'll talk about all the different partnership opportunities we offer. So for example, I said complimentary benefits consultations. Many of you might have heard about the 2024 Commuter Challenge. It just wrapped up. So next year we'll be looking at the 2025 Commuter Challenge, which will be regional. More information to come, so stay tuned on that. It is an incentive program that will help encourage employees and employers to take sustainable options for rewards. Usually it's cash value. And then we also do some low-wage and shift workers promotion, education, focus groups. So if you're interested in that, please feel free to reach out to goDCgo. We also do tabling events for Car Free Day, which is in September, and Bike to Work Day in May. Also Earth Day in April. So if you're interested in doing some kind of sustainability or wellness event, goDCgo does table for that. As you can see, I'm in that picture on the bottom right. Great. Open enrollment and benefits fairs. We are happy to come table or do presentations, whatever works for your office. So in person or virtual. Lunch and learns, webinar trainings, Capital Bike Share corporate membership discounts. We can help advise on that. Support for DC parking cash out law, support for DC commuter benefits law, as well as custom resources such as get around guides and maps. Next slide. If you don't know what a get around guide is, it's something like this. We create this. Our marketing team is fantastic. It's just a resource for you to understand what are all the different sustainable transportation options around your office if you're an employer. We do this for our other programs as well, schools and residences. But it lists all the different options such as bike, transit, Capital Bike Share specifically, scooter, bus, shows all the lines. It shows their walk score, bike score, transit score, and we customize this. You can share this with your clients. You can share this with if family is coming to visit the office, or if you have a meeting coming up and people are visiting from out of town, they don't know how to get to and from the work site sustainably. This is a great resource. And that is everything for employer I'd like to share today. So if you want to chat with our employer team, me, or visit our website, you can go to goDCgo.com/employer. Here's where you can find all the resources I was referencing. And if you would like to set up a meeting or chat about how we can host an event, you're free to reach out to us. And of course, if you want to sign up for a newsletter to learn about those upcoming programs, including the Commuter Challenge, our all-stars programs, webinars, or even that low-wage workers focus groups I was talking about, feel free to sign up for our newsletter. There's the link below. And that is all. I will now hand it over to Leslie to talk about the residential program.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Can everyone hear me? Give me a thumbs up, a chat. All right. Awesome. All right. As Jessica mentioned, my name is Leslie Henderson. I am the residential outreach coordinator for goDCgo. Some of you on the call may be meeting me for the first time or e-meeting me. Some of you all, I may have already showed up to your residential property, or you might have seen me at our new travel trainings that we introduced earlier this year. Some of the other things that we do at Residential Services is we give free consulting services to property teams, property managers, and developers around sustainable transportation. So if you need any type of resources, in addition to what you've already seen, I can definitely sit down with you via in person, a Zoom or Teams call, or a telephone call as well, just to help you out with making sure that your residents and your property teams have everything that they need to make sure everyone can travel sustainably and know the options available to them right from their home. Something else, our goal, of course, going to home, you're leaving from home, going to work, doctor's appointments, going to see friends and family, going to enjoy life with some of the vast entertainment throughout the city. So we want to make sure that you can get around and get safely, sustainably, and affordably to and from your home. Also, we also work with you to help you with your transportation demand management plan. That's for any property managers or any developers that are on this call this afternoon. And we tailor and customize your plan as well. Also, later on in the slides, you'll see zoning orders that we work with. So any type of assistance you need, any multifamily zoning orders that you've been issued that you need help with, that's what we're here for. This is a free service. Take advantage of it. Also, this helps you gain that competitive edge. Many people, of course, DC, a lot of people want to leave their cars behind, or they don't want to have to worry about driving. So have that competitive edge. Let people know, hey, we have Capital Bike Share right here on site at the property or right across the street from the property. Hey, if someone does need to use a car for a few hours or for the day, get Zipcar, Envoy, or many other car providers on your property. Also, if you need bike storage at your residence, feel free to reach out to us, because ultimately we want to help you with achieving your sustainable goals and also discover environmental benefits for the residents and to keep everyone safe, happy, and healthy. Here are our residential suite of services. Like the employer program, we also do tailored resident surveys, because for you property managers on the call, like, hey, I don't know where to start. Best way to start is by hearing from the residents directly. I'm a firm believer in making sure you have exactly what you need for your property and not just speculation like, oh, well, I think they need this, or, you should have this. You want to make sure that you have exactly what the residents actually need and what they'll actually use. And that's how these surveys will help. Also, customized get around guides that you just saw. We can tailor that for your property, showing all the nearby transportation options. Also, if you're watching this program this afternoon and you're like, hey, we do have some unused parking spaces here, we can help connect you with car and van pool drivers who are interested in leasing out that space. Also, you may have seen me at lobby events. We do these lobby events, tablings, commuter socials, learn how to ride, also in different workshops. And we also do staff trainings as well, because of course we know DC is a very transient space, and we want to make sure that the staff, if I'm not there, to make sure that right offhand the residents can ask you, hey, where's nearest bus? I'm new into town. And so we definitely train you on that as well. You know, many of you in your zoning orders, you're required to have capital bike share but memberships available for your residents. Some of you have Metro Smart Trip cards that you need to have for your residents, or a little bit of both. I can assist you with making sure that you can get those items. Any brochures you need, a lot of changes that are coming up in the bus system, as you just saw this afternoon. I can help you with those brochures or any other brochures throughout the transit system, even expanding beyond WMATA on, you know, on what you need. And then again, to the developers and property teams watching this afternoon, zoning order assistance. Right here. So we actually have a residential zoning toolkit that you can get from right here on our website, or you can reach out to me in the contact information that we'll provide before we end the call this afternoon. And I can make sure to get you set up with this toolkit, and we can go over this together. Please call. That's what we're available here. We are a DDOT initiative. We're here to help you, and for free. So please utilize this. You have a simple residential TDM plan here. We can go through each strategy and make sure you have exactly what you need to fulfill your order and to make sure the residents have what they need. And something else, we just recently started the goDCgo travel training program. I'm looking forward to working with Metro more closely as the Better Bus Network and as these new redesigns roll out to make sure that you know your nearby transportation options. And it's also available right now. So if you're new to the city, or you return to the city, or maybe you're not used to the services, or you want to get more confident and comfortable, just feel free to reach out. You can sign up and learn more at the travel training link there. You can go to the goDCgo.com/residential and go there, or you can go directly to the travel training page as well, where you will learn how to navigate using all the nearby transportation option. We have a classroom presentation where you will learn through a PowerPoint how to get around and navigate your options. And then we go out for a little mini field trip excursion using these transportation options, and you get a hands-on experience. And now I'm going to turn it over to Priscilla to introduce and discuss school services.
Thank you, Leslie. Everyone can hear me? All right. I'm Priscilla Ranjitkar, and I'm the school outreach coordinator at goDCgo. So goDCgo School Services, just like all the other services, we provide complimentary consultation to help you and the schools implement and enhance staff commuter benefit program, and we also encourage the staff, students, and families to use sustainable transportation. We provide resources, connect you all with resources and support to staff, students, and families to help them get to and from school in a sustainable manner. So if you have any questions and comments and like how to get around, you can always contact us or me. We help you create a safe and sustainable transportation culture at the school. And some of the programs that goDCgo it is for staff, students, and families is we have the school pool where we connect you can connect with other families to start a carpool, walk pool, or bike pool. If you're interested, you can email me as well. We also have this Cab Before High School program where we provide annual membership, capital bike share annual membership to students who are 16 and above, which helps them get to and from school in a sustainable manner and in a shorter time period. We can also help you connect you with Kids Ride Free card. If you need that, you can contact us and we can lead you to the correct resources. Next slide, please. goDCgo School Services also hosts webinars and on-site resource events to educate staff, students, and families about safe and sustainable transportation, which includes but is not limited to, we can do how to create a bike-friendly school. So since like the Better Bus Network is being redesigned, we can encourage students to bike, not just bike, but to create a bike-friendly school. and how to commute safely to school, how to use transit, how to use school pool, which is the carpool ride matching platform, how to bike safety education for students and staff, CABE 101, which is for staff, and to learn about the corporate membership and how to make the best use of their corporate membership. Next slide, please. Some of the resources and support that goDCgo School Services is you can create a transportation demand plan for your school. So in order to enhance your resources for your students, staff, and families, you can create a TDM, a transportation demand management plan, and we can also plan for the whole year, work with goDCgo, and we can support you throughout the whole year as well. We also have really good marketing resources available, just like the Get Around guides that Leslie and Jessica mentioned before. We have promotional materials and toolkits, for example, school staff commuter resources, back to school packets, school pool promotional packet, STC toolkit, Get Around guides. There's a list of schools near metro stations, tips for riding metro rail, and also you can use the commuter survey to know how the staff commute to and from school, and then implement that in the TDM plan as well. You can find all the materials at goDCgo.com/resources. Next slide, please. And I guess that's it. And go ahead, Jess. You're muted, Jess.
Thank you. All right, so thank you everyone again for presenting. So we do have our contact information up on the screen. If you have specific questions for each or any one of these panelists or guest speakers, please feel free to email them directly. I believe there might be a typo on Priscilla's email, but Priscilla, if you would like to put your email in the chat so any schools representatives or staff can reach out to you directly, please feel free to do so. And we'll open up to questions. I believe we had a couple in the chat earlier, so we only have a few minutes, but we'll try to get to as many as possible. So first question I saw in the chat was, will this connection be expanded to Virginia, talking about the bus network? So Melissa or William, I believe if you want to speak at length to it, I believe yes, there will be connections eventually.
William, would you like me to take this one, or do you want to go for it?
No, I can share. So this network has connections across municipal boundaries. We sought to try to create as many of those as we could. And while we highlighted a few of them, the few of them were new connections. There are some other ones that we're looking at as well, in terms of traveling from DC over into Virginia. There's one rush hour one that's being proposed that would run from about Metro Center through to Shirlington and over to, and then continue on to Alexandria's West End. So that's one that we're looking at. And we also have some that we're looking at across the Woodrow Wilson Bridge, connecting Prince George's County over to Alexandria. So that's some of the things that we're looking at. Obviously, the rail network is the most efficient way, but it may not be the most cost-effective way for many residents. So we tried to balance that and try to provide as many connections as we could by bus across from the district over into Maryland and so forth.
Great, thank you. And the understanding is that this project will take some time, so it will be a growing process as well. So we're going to see those changes over a longer extended period of time. Next question was from Pamela Friedman. What is considered to be a senior residence facility? I think this was in reference to WMATA's work with senior residences. Are you talking about an assisted living or an apartment building with a large number of senior residents? If it's only the former, those of us who live in apartments with large number of seniors are going to suffer or may not see the same effectiveness. Melissa or William?
I'll take that one as well. We've been receiving a lot of feedback from residents throughout the district related to this. So we consider both assisted living facilities as well as residential complexes that are known to have a high senior population as part of the work that we've been doing. And we are continuing to take feedback during this phase from areas that residents believe are not being adequately addressed in this redesign. If as mentioned earlier, we looked at instances where we were trying to make services more direct and combined routes together, a route that ran twice an hour versus a route that ran 3 times an hour. And some of the feedback that we're receiving is that there are individuals who have moved to certain places in the district because of the bus network that is there and how it helps them get from point A to point B without a car. So we'll definitely have to continue to look at that and continue to evaluate how we can help those seniors, whether they're in assisted living facilities or if they're in residential complexes, to make sure that they have the services that they need.
Great. Are there any other questions? If not, thank you everyone for your time. If there are questions, feel free later to email one of us and the recap will be sent out. Thank you again to everyone for participating and for our guest speakers for attending. And yes, we look forward to seeing these changes come to life and all of everyone's feedback come to fruition. So again, appreciate you all. Thank you for your time and we'll see you again soon.
Have a great afternoon, everyone.
Having us.
Thank you all.
Bye-bye.